Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our attendees wherever you are in the world. I hope you're excited and ready to ignite your businesses for super success. So, we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers. So, there's no excuse for anybody to say they haven't got one thing to take away and implement in their business tomorrow. So, what I want you to do, say hi, put in the comments, put hi where you're from, and please put your questions there so that we know we're not alone. Is that okay? I take it is. So, shortly, we will start to introduce. We're just giving everyone an opportunity to log in. And basically, it's an interesting subject because I think on one end, if you look at the narrative from the ministers, business is doomed. But if you look at the SMEs, it's all exciting, innovative, sustainability, climate change, all of those opportunities around A&I. And so they're taking full advantage of that and the collaborations that they can make to ensure that their business goes forward. And I don't think so. One of the things we should ask: do we rely on the government for our business growth, or do we look at ways to take responsibility for our own development? So those are some of the questions we need to ask. I mean, our panelists, they're all self-made, and it'd be interesting to see what they think about some of the government initiatives. So so it's interesting times, and we're looking forward to hearing what they have to say. And so one of the things I'm going to do is mute my phone because last time I got caught out. So you at home will get away with it, but not me. So today, it really is. We've got to be passionate. We've got to be invigorated. We've got to look at how we want to move our businesses in the next section or next phase. I mean, as we come out of lockdown, or we're supposed to be out of lockdown, it's meant to be freedom. What impact is this having on your business? Is it not having an impact? Are you finding more opportunities? And where are you finding these opportunities? Where can you share these opportunities? So for me, I'm really interested to hear what our speakers have to say. Our first speaker will be on shortly, and that will be Baroness Verma of Leicestershire. She started her career in high fashion and then moved into the service sector. It's a family business now. And she received her peerage in 2006. Baroness Verma is a real advocate for women in business, the diversity agenda, and more recently, the domestic abuse agenda, because obviously, especially with the lockdown, more and more women, and I'm not saying men don't suffer, but we're talking about women have suffered the more abuse. So she's a real champion, real activist. She's not scared to speak her mind, and I'm really pleased to have her. It's an honor, really, to have her on this platform. So get ready and get your questions ready to speak to her and answer how she did it. Because from humble beginnings, how did she make this leap from a humble family to being in the House of Lords? So that shows you anything's possible if you put your mind to it. So I'm just really excited to ensure that you get the most out of this session. I don't want anyone just sitting back and not getting involved, because it would be pointless. You must have at least one question, one insight, and which will help your business. Anything, that pressing question. So one of the things I'll always say, what is the biggest challenge in your business today? Or what is the biggest challenge in your career? Because you could be an entrepreneur. So what is the biggest challenge you're facing today? And therefore, that can actually determine how you get answers today. You might get the answer you've been looking for months. So I would say, think about it. And then also, what is it you want? What is your vision for your business? Is it the same as before lockdown, or has it changed drastically? And have you changed your goals and your actions and your habits to meet those goals and that vision? Because sometimes we're still in the old vision, and times have changed, habits have changed, and actually that vision doesn't work for us anymore. So again, how are you then trying to remodel your business to ensure that your new vision excites you, motivates you, empowers you, and all the words that we think we just say, but actually we're supposed to feel those emotions when we're running our business, because it's very easy to get caught up and just feel bogged down by the whole laborious state of activities that we have to do. So we could be busy, 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 but we're not achieving what we really want to achieve. So again, think about where you are in your business. Are you in the right lane? Because I always say, stay in your lane, but up your game. But are you in the right lane? Especially for a lot of us, we put our ladder up against a wall, but is it the right wall? And then you get to the point and you say, this is not where I want to be. So this is a great opportunity to revisit where you're going in your business, where you're going in your career, and just hear from some of these really pioneering, inspirational speakers who have just put their head down and doggedly gone after what they've wanted in their career. And it's, it's a privilege to have them on here. And you've got a real opportunity to tap into this knowledge and these insights from these amazing people. So I can't even say it enough, because I'm just glad I've got this amazing panel of dynamic speakers. So I'm more excited because I just want to hurry up and get them started so I can just do what I need to do. So we've got about a couple of minutes left. I want to say to you as well, it's really important that when we look at going forward, what is the legacy we're going to leave with our business? Because many of us are working in our business, but we've got to think about the legacy as well. So are you going to sell the business? Is it going to be handed down to your family? Do they even want it? Are you going to sell the business? So how are you actually preparing for your exit? Because that's quite important. So I think that these are quite serious questions, because we're in serious times. And remember, it was boom, and we didn't even know it was boom time. So if that was boom times, we've got to really take our businesses seriously now and to the next level. But there's so many opportunities if we put on the right lens. And I think that many of us, and I always say this, be careful of the bubble you're in, because you could be in a bubble and it's not, if you're the brightest one in that bubble, you're in the wrong bubble. You need to get in a bubble where you're stretched, people stretch you, and you're definitely meant to be the last one in the bubble, so you can keep climbing up and improving yourself, I keep saying. So this is not one of these sessions where we're going to be all jargon, full of jargon and everything. This is real life, pragmatic, practical insights, solutions, recommendations for you to move your business to the next level, and also empower you as a leader, because oftentimes we forget we're leaders, and also role models. Not that we said to people, I'm a role model, because I think that's kind of, that comes with the territory. And we say when I was setting up my business, I wanted to be a role model. I just wanted to do my business. So what's the impact of becoming a role model in your business? Even if you don't think you are, people are looking to you and seeing what you're doing. So I'm saying now, without further ado, I'm so excited to have and introduce you to Baroness Sandy Verma of Leicestershire to the platform. Sandy!
Hi, Sonia, and hi, everybody. Hi. It's brilliant to be here supporting such a phenomenal platform, Sonia, and it's great to see you. It's been ages. And congratulations to the National Black Women's Network. You know, I've seen so many of your brilliant past events and the way you reach out to people, and I'm so pleased to be here today. I know that time is always limited and you want to say lots of things, but I want to start off by actually starting with a somber opening sentence. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm going to start off with that somber opening sentence, because it's going to actually then shape the remaining 8 or 9 minutes that I'm going to speak. Yesterday, around about 7:30 in the morning, I was given news that my aunt had passed away. She'd had COVID pneumonia, and she, I'm afraid, has now been added to the statistic of those people who have lost their lives due to this horrible pandemic that has gone across the world. Why did I open with those lines? Because when we go back to this perceived norm, the perceived norm cannot be the same as what it was pre-pandemic. And the reason for that is we have spent the last 18 months or so, 17, 18 months, whatever it is, I've lost track of time, in isolation, in bubbles, in fear, and the pressure that has put on each and every individual and collectively each and every organization and business cannot be actually counted and estimated yet. The fallout of all of those things will come later on. But what can it allow us to do? I hope that what it will allow us to do is to actually look at how our business models worked in the past and how we make them a better, safer, kinder place for the future. And that's why I've been on a lot of webinars, seminars, Zoom calls, and every other platform that you can mention. And I've done it because I've wanted people to understand whenever there's a crisis, whenever there's a challenge, we've got to actually wade through the weeds and see what good can come out of all of the misery that has been bestowed upon us. And part of that, in my genuine belief, is let us make the workplace, the business place, the retail place, a much more inclusive, even-handed, fairer place for people to feel that they can belong. And we can do that because of several things. And those are technology, the ability to come together when we needed to configure how working days are actually delivered, and also to really, really see how do we make sure that the bottom line is ethical, sustainable, has got the people at the heart of it. Remember, you are not only deliverers, but customers. You're also buyers and consumers. So we can see it from several lenses. And so my journey as I started in business was at the age of 19, and I came into a world that was very dominated by men of a particular type of background that actually dictated what the market would look like. The reason why I was successful in my business was I understood the customer. And at age 19, what you needed to know more than anything else was the customer. How can I service my customer with best value? Not cheap, but best value. How can I make my workplace a good place to work? And how could I make my profit to be a profit that was actually going to bring in more business? And on all of those fronts, Sonia mentioned it right at the beginning. I planned my entry into business, and alongside that, I planned my exit strategy. And I was determined that I would leave this sector knowing that I had a next sector to go on to. And I think many people make the biggest mistake when they do anything in business, and that is they think that they're going to be there forever. The high street has demonstrated it absolutely vividly over the last few months, where the big flagships have just disappeared. But what has been replaced? What has replaced it? And at this moment in time, that's the big question that we should all be asking. Are we going to support the continuation of a race to the bottom by cheap, cut price, ruthless business people who do not put the sustainability of the planet at the forefront? A lot of businesses are now turning their backs to that model. A lot of businesses are saying, how do we protect the planet? How do we make sure that the way we behave with our workforce is ethical and sustainable and a nice place for us to be working in? And how do we make sure that our products actually are products people want to buy and keep? And you know, technology has been the savior for most people during the pandemic. And I need to congratulate the government. The government came in the UK with the furlough scheme. Government came in the UK with the bounce back loans. But all of those are within the content of an economy that's got to regrow. And I say to every single person here who's interested in business, when you sit down and put your thoughts to paper, please map out 3 questions you need to ask yourself. What is my competitor doing? How am I going to have a USP that is different to my competitor? Not that we need to undercut them or underprice them, but what do we do as a uniquely different business? Secondly, how do we make sure that our exit strategy actually opens several avenues for new things for us to be able to do? Because technology will enable that. I'm so glad we've got Edith on the line today in the panel, because I'm doing a whole lot of work in Africa in the renewable energy sector. And that to me is an exciting period of my next sort of 5-6 years of work, because we can actually establish a complete customer base new line, completely look at new products. And that comes to my final thing that I would give as my tiny piece of advice to everybody. Never fear to fail. You cannot fail if you do not try. And failure is a mark of trying. What you do is you pick yourself up, you learn from what went wrong, and then you re-establish your business plan. But please do not sit back and think it never work. When I was 19, I was told it wouldn't work. And I can tell you, I had some ups and downs, but I managed to make my business work. That was because we looked at who our customer was. I have gone on to service sectors. I am now in the renewable energy sector. I'm about to support a whole technology platform that is all about well-being and in the environment. So there is a great deal of stuff out there that you can do. Just find what you're passionate about and go after it. Because trust me, you will find plenty of like-minded people on the way. Never forget, don't be fearful of asking for help. Don't be fearful of having a dream. And remember, commitment and confidence are the only 2 best friends you will always need. Sonia, I think on that note, I've taken up my 800 minutes. I'll hand it over to you.
Ever the diplomat, prompt with lots and lots of facts. I've just wanted to go back to one thing is when you talked about the race to the bottom, I think one of the things that COVID has demonstrated, those who have and those who don't, and the impact it's had on the mood of people. Because obviously when you look at the top 1% of companies, and yet they sprout about sustainability, climate change, but yet they're causing the most damage. Hello?
Yep. Yeah. Sonia? I think.
What can you say?
I think, look, at the end of the day, the more entrepreneurs we get, the more people that go into business, and the more we actually challenge those top 1% or anybody that we feel is not actually, the planet is, we've only got one, we've got nowhere else to go. So we need to be able to actually stand up and take responsibility ourselves. That's the key. Let us take responsibility ourselves. And I know, look, all of the people that will be listening to today will be saying, how do I make my business sustainable? Well, you make it by being responsible. And you know, I've never done a business to make just money. You talked about legacy. The thing for me is, what would I like to leave after I've gone from this planet? I would hope that I've helped ignite enough flames in small businesses across the place I know to be able to say, you know what, if she can do it, I can do it. If she made money and we had a comfortable life, why can't we? I think, you know, let's take responsibility for where we are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So next, we are going to bring in Edith Najig, social and serial entrepreneur, regional director for the Alpha Group, Nairobi, and CEO of Ariel for Africa and director of Job Creation Limited. I think it's about 50,000 jobs you've created.
Yep,
Edith?
Sonia, 50,000 to date. Yeah, 50,000.
Brilliant. So let's hear from you. Ignite your businesses for growth, for success.
Absolutely.
Come on in.
Absolutely. Well,
And
first of
passion in it.
all, thank
Lots of
you.
passion in it.
Thank you for having me, first of all, Sonia. I'm deeply humbled and grateful to be on your platform, first of all. And thankful to everyone that's listening as well, that took time, right, to listen to me. So like Sonia mentioned, my name is Edith Njage. I am a Kenyan born and bred, but I've lived all over the world, including in London, on the south side, zone 4, all the way at the bottom. But yeah, in my time essentially pursuing academia, I spent a lot of time in the United Kingdom and in the United States. And as a result of that, I think it brought me back home. It brought me back to the African continent because I started to identify gaps. And that's what has helped me along my social entrepreneurship journey. So I am a social and serial entrepreneur. Social meaning everything that I do, right, is for the benefit of the future. Right. And for me, the main focus, like Sonia mentioned, is job creation, is helping young people, especially within the African continent, where we have the most number of young people, but the most unemployment, right, within the continent. So job creation is something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I have pursued relentlessly. And just in my little short journey, right? So I'm quite young. I'm not sure if Sonia knows this. I am 26, turned 26 about a month ago, or so, slightly over a month. But in my few years, I have been very intentional to leave my mark on this earth. And the reason why I say that is because I am committed and intentional and about living life on a mandate. So not just doing things randomly, being very intentional with my pursuit. So in terms of what I do, I am the CEO of Ariel for Africa. I am also co-founder, sorry, I apologize for that. Also the co-founder of Job Creation, where I'm currently just serving as a director. And then I joined the Alpha Group a month ago. And we essentially provide peer-to-peer advisory services for business owners, which is something I was so excited about because, and I'm not sure business owners talk about this enough, but it's a very lonely journey. Right? As an entrepreneur, as the leader of an organization, it's a very, very lonely journey. And that's why communities like these are amazing. But then also having a circle of people that are on your same track is super important. And I'm very passionate about that because I was fortunate to have a circle of founders as well that moved at the speed that I moved at, right? So another thing about entrepreneurs, we don't all move at the same speed. We're not all in the same industry, same country, same growth rate, same goal, same mandate, right? So finding your tribe is very important. So I think for me, one of the things that I will say about the pandemic is that I know, right? I understand it has hit women disproportionately to the men, to our men counterparts, which is obvious, right? So now you have women working from home, they have kids. So if she, for example, was running a business, she has to figure out how do I have that work-life balance? Everything is blurred together. I personally really struggled with setting time limits, right? So I'd find myself working 16, 18-hour days, right? Because you're just at home, so you don't really feel like I'm pulling my time, So that really became a thing that I had to be intentional about. But the pandemic has really affected women differently. And I will speak to the statistics that I know in the African continent. I know that 90% of women-owned businesses have been hit tremendously. And by tremendously, I mean quite a good proportion of that. I believe 3/4 have closed down as a result of everything that the pandemic has done. So I think for me, however, what I have seen, right? So the good side of all of this, or rather, those of us who try to find the good, we're in the middle of what I would call a disruptive era. Disruptive in the sense that the pandemic sifts, right? So it's sort of like the launching pad for those who are prepared, right, to take advantage of this time. It is the time for the relentless, not for anybody and not for everybody. It is the time for those who understand the grit element of doing business and those who understand how to adapt, how to live in a new normal, how to stay agile, how to move with your customer, how to not just be a want business, but a need business in your customer's mind. And so that's what essentially I've been speaking to a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with. I work with quite a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and I keep telling them the same thing. Being in business and being an entrepreneur in this time, right, is possibly the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot every day, right? And I love what the Baroness said before she got off, and she said that be ready to fail. So I'm going to mention a few tips that I want to leave with you. Number one, as a business owner, as a woman in business, be ready to fail. Every single day, wake up knowing I will fail today. Because what does that mean? It means progress. It means growth. It means you've actually done something, right? If you fail at something, it's not a bad thing. It means that you're learning, that you're growing, that there's movement. And that's always a plus. I love how I think it's Tyler Perry who says, fail forward. It's okay to fail, but just allow that failure to propel you forward. Aren't we all glad that Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times? Because otherwise, we'd be sitting in the dark, right? So he allowed himself to fail 1,000 times just so that 1,001 could be the end result that we have today. Number two, the money is not everything, right? You don't always need money, business owners, to do good, right? You don't need money to be successful or to start. A lot of business owners I speak to, it's always about the fundraise, the capital, and for women in business, right, the lack thereof. We only get 2% of venture capital worldwide, right, according to recent statistics. So how do we use that lack and still build unicorns, right? Still build billion-dollar organizations. And I want to encourage you and tell you that it comes down to the third tip, staying relentless. Now, being relentless means no is your fuel, rejection is your fuel. You don't take nothing, okay, as the end of the road. Any wall that you get to, you go through. No conversations, no discussions. And then the final tip I think I'm going to leave you with is mentorship is everything. And I wish I was told this earlier on in my entrepreneurship journey. So, same as Verna, I became an entrepreneur as a teenager. By like 18, 19, I'd already started my first company. And because of that, I didn't understand at the time how important it was to have a mentor, to have a coach, to have a person who, at the end of the day, is not just interested in the growth of the company, is interested in the growth of Edith, right? As a person. Because when you're a business owner, people don't say this, but one will always grow more than the other. The company most likely will grow more than you grow. Okay, this is fact. A lot of entrepreneurs sacrifice their growth to grow the business. They will give anything for the business to grow. They will take all the courses, they will pay for accountants, they will pay for lawyers. But are you investing in yourself as a business owner? So that's one thing that's really important. I would say mentorship. Get yourself a coach, get yourself some sort of circle, group support, especially if they're your peers, right? Peer-to-peer advisory is everything. I wish somebody told me that earlier on. I think by right now, the banks, they'd be looking for me. They'd be like, where's that girl? You know? So I wish somebody actually told me that one. And then I will say at the end of the day, sustainability is everything. And the Baroness mentioned this, that we have to build the earth that we want. If you identify a problem, right, it's not to wait for the government to fix it. It's not to wait for NGOs to come up with a solution. If you identify waste, if you identify pollution, if you identify hunger, if you identify energy, all of these different issues, especially in the SDG goals, put in a solution, right? You don't see a problem so that you can acknowledge it, you see that you can solve it. Especially if you're a woman in business, guess what? You have not just the ability to solve it, but the ability to nurture a solution. Women are nurturers. So we approach business differently, and we approach sustainability differently, or we should, right? Rather. And I hope that this brings to you how intentional you have to be in terms of understanding. It's not just corporate versus charity, right? Where you're either a private limited company or you're a charity. Guess what? There's a middle ground. There are social entrepreneurs like myself who are dedicated to making sure that we leave a world behind better than we found it. And that needs to be the goal of business. The second that we start to do that, then guess what? Public sector will follow private. Governments will follow business owners. I don't think business owners, especially women, understand how powerful they are and how great of an agenda they have to transform the world that we live in. And especially if you're a woman in the developed world, you are sitting on an advantage that a lot of women in developing markets wish they had. They wish they had the access that you guys have. So I hope that you take advantage of that so that they can begin to see you move up that ladder. But yeah, I think, Sonia, that's all from me.
Well, thank you, Edith. It's like, so you're only 26.
Yeah, imagine.
I
Imagine.
know, baby, with this all this wisdom on her shoulders, all this old women wisdom on her shoulders.
Oh my.
It was fascinating, but we're going to come back to you. I loved what you said about the movement, about the women. They need to mobilize more because, you know, at 51% of the population, they
Yeah,
should have a voice, a stronger voice than what they have now, and shouldn't be so laid back
yeah,
in terms of some of the things they want. And we shouldn't be
yeah,
still be discussing childcare
yeah,
and things like that. We need to be looking at how do we have an economic footprint
exactly.
that makes a difference in each economy. Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, Edith, it's lovely hearing from you. So I'm now going to bring in entrepreneur himself, Julian Hall. So he is Julian Hall, founder of Ultra Education, which teaches entrepreneurship to children aged 17 to 18. Come in, Mr. Firecracker.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, Julian. It's always a pleasure. You know, I love your spirit and your dedication to ensuring that young people have this opportunity, because if they had to depend on the school, they would never get it.
So thank you for the introduction. Sonia said we teach entrepreneurship to kids from 17 to 18, but I think what she meant to say was 7 to 18 years old. So we start them off really young as kids. And I guess the reason we do that is I started my first business when I was 18. So, you know, I really resonate with Edith as a young entrepreneur. But also, in my adult life, in working with grown-up entrepreneurs, as many of us are in the room, I realized that a lot of the limiting beliefs that we have as entrepreneurs come from experiences that we've had as children, our education. Everybody's got that story of the teacher who said something motivational or not motivational. Everyone, you know, remembers that mentor. Everybody remembers that that early experience, which helps to unpack who they are today. And so I'm a boy of Caribbean heritage in a borough called Brent in northwest London, and statistically, boys of my demographic specifically have one of the lowest life chances in the UK in terms of attainment and achievement. And I've not been that statistic, and I put that down to entrepreneurship. I put that down to having an accidental early experience of entrepreneurship.
Julian, we seem to be losing you. We seem to be losing you. So if you go back to the statistic about black boys of your age,
yeah,
because that is quite an important message.
Sure. Am I back now? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, you're frozen. Right, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that the statistic of boys of Caribbean heritage in Brent is such that they are amongst the lowest performing in the country. And that's still a statistic which rings true today, and it has been for decades now. And I believe that I've not been that statistic simply because I had an early intervention experience of entrepreneurship when I was 18 years old. And that has increased my life chances, I want to say, at least 10 times. And so understanding and looking at how education prepares young people, I realized that entrepreneurship was missing, and that not just entrepreneurship for the sake of setting up a business, but having an entrepreneurial mindset and an entrepreneurial skill set, which is actually what the world of work requires of young people today. And when we say entrepreneurial mindset or skill set, we mean resilience, we mean communication skills, confidence, self-esteem, being able to work as part of a team, being a problem solver, being able to innovate and think around corners. All of those things are default skills that are required today in the workplace, but you don't get them from traditional careers advice. You get a lot of that by being challenged or by being passionate about solving a problem, which is what entrepreneurship is all about. And so that became my mission. As Edith said, you know, there is that bit in the middle where you are commercial, but you want to impact the world for the better. And that's what we did. And that's what I did at Ultra Education. And I was compelled to do it because, to be honest, you know, making money is great, but you do realize at some point that making money for your own gratification actually doesn't equate to happiness. So, you know, growing up, the promise is that you work hard in school, get your grades, you know, get a job, make some money, and you'll be happy. It's not actually true. Money doesn't equate to happiness. Purpose, fulfillment, legacy, doing things you're passionate about, all of that is a closer fit to happiness than money. Money solves money problems. It doesn't solve the rest of it. And it certainly doesn't, it certainly isn't fulfilling. It's fleeting, but not fulfilling. And so what then happens is you have some people who just go off into the charitable sector because they want to feel good and do good. And then you have some people who just go off into the commercial sector because they just want to make money and feel secure and look after their families and all the rest of it. But about, 10, 15 years ago, the government came up with this idea of kind of community interest companies, social enterprises. And that's where, I live in that crossover space. And you've got organizations, funders, early stage venture capitalists like Bethnal Green Ventures, for example, who are tech for good companies. So we have a mobile app which teaches kids using artificial intelligence, entrepreneurship, and we've got users from China to Chingford, and they believe that you can be a force for good and create a lot of positive impact in the world, but you can also do really, really well commercially. And they have one of the visionary investors and VCs who have kind of spearheaded this idea. And I share that because often people think you've got to do one or the other, but you can do both. And I think Baroness Verma also mentioned the impact that you have on the environment. And actually, if you go through any tech accelerator now, there is this focus on how your business will positively or negatively impact the environment, because this is the planet and this is the world that we live in. And for me personally, being able to introduce that at a young age. So when we teach entrepreneurship to kids, we are telling them about social impact. We're telling them about the environment. We're telling them about all of these things which are new ideas. So all of these big corporations are having to tag on this idea of being socially responsible because it's not part of their DNA. When we teach entrepreneurship to kids, it's part of the fabric. It's part of what we say is entrepreneurship. And so they are growing up thinking and believing that this is how it is. Being socially responsible, thinking about people, planet, and profit is actually just a normal part of business. And so it then becomes genuine, which is the point. It then becomes genuine, and they can genuinely make it part of their business models, as opposed to just tagging it on to their business and it being this clunky thing on the side, which doesn't quite work. And so, but at the same time, the balance is looking at the very, very basic parts of business. And again, as Baroness Verma said, understanding your customers. So for us, when the pandemic first hit, that was what we did. We did a deep dive on what our customers wanted. So our customers would be parents, would be teachers, youth workers, social workers, etc. And we asked them, what's keeping you awake at night? What are the biggest things that your kids are being challenged with? And we focused in on that. And we grew over the course of the pandemic. We grew about 4 times in size. And so, in fact, The Voice regarded us in an article as pandemic proof. I'm not sure if that was a thing before, and we're not quite out of the woods yet, but that growth that we experienced was unexpected. And so it came with its own challenges. And so in terms of, this whole idea of igniting your business, if any of you remember the Mission Impossible movies, where which I'm a big fan of, there's always the kind of epilogue or prelogue at the beginning, and then the match is lit, and then you see this kind of burning trail which leads to this massive explosion before the film starts. Now, if that doesn't have a defined path to follow, then it will just expire and you'll never get that massive explosion, that massive outcome at the end. And for me, that is the system and the process that flame, that thing that's been ignited is now following. Because you can ignite something within a business, but and that's generally what entrepreneurs are good at doing. You using that passion, using that fire to ignite an idea, to ignite a team, to ignite a product or service into the market. But if you don't have the systems and processes in place, the right strategies and tactics to follow those, that flame that's been ignited won't be able to follow a path through to an outcome. So I think that it's important to understand what stage of business you're currently at. And, given that we've been teaching entrepreneurship for a long time, we've had to do a deep dive on the terms, entrepreneurship. So for us, an entrepreneur is someone that is different to a business person, right? An entrepreneur isn't, a business person might buy a bottle of water for 50p and sell it for £1. Whereas an entrepreneur will take that bottle of water and put some vitamins in it and sell it for £3. They're trying to innovate. They're trying to do something slightly different. Are you a solopreneur? Are you working on your own? Are you a leader? Are you a founder who actually needs a CEO? Are you a tech entrepreneur? Where do you sit in that whole ecosystem of business? Which one are you? It's important to identify those, because where you go with it is very different. I spoke to an exited tech entrepreneur recently, and to Baroness Verma's point, he said when he started his tech company, he started it with the sole intention of exiting. He started it with the intention of selling the business. And he said there's a very big difference between starting a business to sell it and starting a business for it to just be a going concern. And so it is important to understand where you are as a business and where you want to get to. It sounds very basic and obvious, but most businesses just kind of trundle along and they're not really sure of where their destination is, where they're trying to exit. Do you want to get bought? Do you want to trade sell? Do you want to float on the stock market? Where do you want to go and what do you want to do? And I think perhaps the last thing is the pandemic has made the world smaller. The opportunities for working outside of the UK are now, they're at our fingertips. They're on StreamYard, they're on YouTube, they're on Zoom. And, I've been having conversations with individuals from the Middle East, from Brazil, from Ghana, from China, from all over the world, because the world has now become smaller now that we understand that there's a hybrid way for us to deliver our products or services. So don't just think within the confines, if you're in London, of the M25 or the UK. And actually, the UK has got a great brand. As much as we moan about Blighty, when you export that British flag, there is a premium that comes with it. So let's use that to our advantage as British business people, and really think about how we can leverage things that we do have to our benefit, because there are enough challenges out there, and we really need to just really distill the things that we can leverage and build on the things that we maybe our weaknesses within our business, within ourselves. Edith was very right in saying that, the business will develop, but you've got to personally develop as well. So I just want to thank the previous speakers, and I look forward to Morris. And thank you again to Sonia.
Yeah. Well, Julian, thank you. I'm going to have to start to call you Preacher Julian now, because that was like a biblical sermon on entrepreneurship. I almost went to say, yes, Pastor. And that's about having passion. And as you say, igniting that passion within what you do, which is going to be really important. So thank you, Julian. I'm looking forward to when you all come back, because I'm sure it's going to be a fiery discussion. So that's taking place. Now, my little homeboy from Southeast London, I'm calling Richard Simpson from Coming Up Foods. What can I say, Richard? I can't even describe it. From your takeaway shops to your other interests, you've done amazing things. And I'm not going to say anything. It's up to you to say what you do. I'm not going to expose what you do. But I want you to talk about igniting, how you ignite your business. Come on in. And share some of the pitfalls. Because remember, in your days, we're oldies, right? So we're not like Edith. We're not young. So we
Let me just say hi. Good evening, Sonia. Thank you for having us, or having me along to the National Black Women's Network. This is certainly a first to be sitting on the other side, if you like, because I'm always the one running in with the food when it's all going on and getting the wafting of curry goat and jerk chicken, and everybody's like, whoops, time to eat now and leave everything else. So it's a pleasure to be on the other side of the camera. Could I just address a good evening, fellow panelists as well. Good evening, those who are watching, listening, and who will see us further down the line. But let me just address something that Julian said first, and it made me chuckle, because he said, do you remember that thing, the match at the beginning of the Mission Impossible movies? I went, what movie? we're old enough to remember the Mission Impossible series.
The original, yeah.
It was on every week on terrestrial television. So
we only had 3 channels, didn't we?
Well, there you go. Yeah. So I'm not sure about the movie, but we saw it every week. We saw the match being lit. It was all the same. So as Sonia says, I'm a South East London homie, and as Julian's demonstrated, I'm perhaps the grey barley is is beginning to give my youth away. But yeah, well, thanks again. It's coming up is what I own, and I'll just literally big up my chest here when I go like this, so that the camera can see. I'll literally big up my chest.
So where's the mussels? I thought, where's the mussels?
Well,
You should
no,
be
no, no,
working
no.
out
There's a
through the
one pack below
pandemic.
that. I just wanted to show the chest. That's all. We're coming up is has grown into being a chain of Caribbean takeaways, restaurant, caterers. We've had premises in Bedford. We have premises in Brighton. We have premises in Grenada in the Caribbean. We have several sites in Lewisham Borough, and our catering arm takes us literally all over the country. So we do food, and we do food from a Caribbean perspective predominantly, but we offer food right across the spectrum. So we've done before now Indian, we've done Greek food, we're well placed to fuse it. And going on from there, as Edith was saying about personal development, I'm now finding myself more so on the other side of the camera, delivering teaching sessions on food and trying to expand the health aspect of what we do and looking into trying to resolve the issues of diabetes and all the other concerns that are prevalent in our Caribbean community, African Caribbean community. And I must also say, I view myself as a Pan-Africanist. And I'll say again, and I've heard other great people say this. No, not other great people. Sorry, great people say this. I'm not one of them yet. When there is a strong Africa, there will be a strong black race. And there are many issues to be addressed in Africa right now. First of all, just to touch on, we've got many great business people, many great leaders, business leaders, but not governmental leaders. Those people are in government at the moment, with all the due respect. I could name one or two whom are not, but by and large, since the real power people came to unfortunate ends in the 60s at the so-called independence, how you might give someone independence whom you didn't bring into the world, I don't know, but let's, don't want to get on my soapbox about that. But we need now to have a rebirth, and the awareness is coming about where we have to put as much as we can back into and build the Africa we want. So I'll encourage everyone first, if we're all right being in the diaspora, being in the Africas, being in Europe, but I believe that we all have to be Africa focused. And when we contribute our pounds and dollars and euros into the coffers of established groups in Africa now, then we will acquire the Africa we want. And there are loads of opportunities. And I heard the Baroness saying she's getting involved in eco power and electricity and the rest. There's a huge opportunity there in all avenues. So that's my sort of Africa bit. As for coming up, we're 30 years old this year. Let me say that also. We celebrated our 30th birthday on the 1st of June, 1991, hailing from South London in the Lewisham Borough. As Sonia said, her homie. So we're very, I'm very much, as we say, a Lewishamite. Born in Lewisham Hospital, raised in the borough of Lewisham. My businesses are in Lewisham. My wife equally was born and raised in Lewisham. Our children are born and raised in Lewisham. Coming up's been established in Lewisham. And 30 years later, we're still here doing it, and the fire is still ignited. So that's where we are at the moment. Now, I'm a mechanical engineer. All right, in my training, pipe work, control systems, automated food plants. I was responsible for Dungeness A and B power stations for my company, Sizewell nuclear power station, Isle of Grain gas-fired power station, as well as contractors, Babcocks for one, who built power stations, Jay Murphys who dig up the roads and lay water pipes. Where any medium has to go from through, any gas, water, oil has to travel, then I got involved. Claim to fame, I did the cooling system on the Channel Tunnel borer when that was being built. The entire cooling system. I did the takeoff for that for my company, and also the fountain and controls at Founders Court and Canary Wharf when that was being developed as well. So there was a couple of areas I was personally involved in for my company. But I've always said that one can have a reasonable life working for somebody else, but it's also been mentioned about fulfillment. And I'm one who believes that we have to be able to influence the game. And if you trade your time for money, then somebody else, calls the tune. And that's no good. That wouldn't stimulate me at all, because I've a little more to say. So I've always felt that, there are people who earn a lot more than I do working for somebody else, but they haven't a voice. And I think it's very important to be able to speak your truth and have this voice, and therefore have more of an influence, because other contributors tonight, Julian, Edith, Baroness Velma, have all spoken about social entrepreneurship, the social space, and that's where I found myself. Obviously, business started as a means to feed my family, as a means to, as every young man, buy a house, be independent. Those what started it. But my journey went right back to we were 11 years old, and Sonia would remember this, Catford Dog Track, where we were fortunate. We lived just literally across the road from the stadium, and we used to look after cars. When the dogs were on, we would be out there, and it was well organized with all the local children. Everyone had their pitch, much like the ice cream vans. You knew that this was your street. You go from there to there, that corner, and then someone else would have there, and somebody else would have the others. So it was very well organized in that way. And we would be looking after cars, making sure that they weren't damaged or anything. And then during the bank holidays, we'd not only be looking after cars whilst the punters went into the dog track, but we'd be washing cars, because we live, as I said, just across the road. So we'd be washing cars. And that's how my brother and I made our money. And this is from 11, as I say, 10 years old, 11 years old, we were looking after cars. And that developed into penny for the guy, right? So, the likes of our young Julian there mightn't even be aware what this is. But penny for the guy, going back to the history of the Westminster and Guy Fawkes, who plotted to blow up the Houses of Parliament, but he was foiled. So not spoken so much of these days. They just call it bonfire night, but it came about from Guy Fawkes, which was Guy Fawkes would have set the Westminster on fire. So they kind of reversed that, in that Guy Fawkes and penny for the guy would be you'd make up a scarecrow looking thing, right? So you would get your old trousers, or, well, you were more interested in the money, so hopefully it was an old pair of trousers, and an old shirt, an old top, maybe your dad's old one or whatever else, depends again how desperate you were, as if what you would use. And then you'd grab one of your mum's tights and hope that it would be an old one. But again, you were only interested in making money, so you grab all these things, you stitch them together. So there you go. We were getting all involved in sewing lessons as well. Well, I did. I sewed mine myself. So you'd make up this image, this scarecrow-looking thing with trousers, and you put your sew-on socks and a head, and stuff it with anything you can lay your hands on. But it would be best if you use fabric, because this thing obviously got wet from time to time, and the paper would just shrivel up. So you stuff it with clothes, and then we'd again place it outside the local supermarket during the week, but definitely on the dog's night. Sit it outside, this is the entrepreneurial spirit. And we would sit it outside the entrance, and we would ask penny for the guy. And the whole idea was they would give you money, 5p, 10p, it wouldn't be much of that. But there again, a portion of chips, let's put it into perspective. The portion of chips only cost 5p, right? So, you know, so if you got 5p, you're all right. So it was just 5p, 2p, and the rest, yeah? So we would collect that. At the end of the night, we'd go to our local chip shop and we'd buy crackling and chips. Because
I was going to say, did it include the crackling?
Well, you know, but this is it, you see, because you couldn't afford a fish. So, you know, you just have the crackling and have the little taste, you know. So, so we'd have our portion of chips. But then the chip shop would change up all our coppers and our whatevers. Then we'd then get pound note, you know. Then there was a pound note, not a coin. So, hey, so that was it. And then as Christmas would come around, we'd be doing choir singing. So three of us would roll up, my brother and then a chap called Stephen Haskell, I remember, the three of us. So you press the button. This is, you know, this was all pre-trick and treating, because this American trick or treat thing, you know, worshipping the dead, we're not into that. But
Richard, let me interject.
Yeah.
So you did carol singing to raise money, yeah? For the Bank of Richard Simpson, right?
Well, that's it.
So tell me what song, in fact, can you remember what song you sang?
Well, it was always, it might have been Good King Winterslash.
Sing me the first two lines.
I can't even remember a line of that. And there was and I remember the title. And what was the other one? We would always sing in school. Oh, while shepherds watch their flock at night.
I remember that one.
There you go. So those were a couple of them. And so, you know, and if we were fortunate, we'd start singing, they'd give us a few coins and get us on our way. But there was some we thought were evil. They, you know, we'd have to do a 10-minute recital. You know? And they'll stand there patiently, and then they will come up and hand us something. So I'm just saying all of that to give an idea about, you know, because they speak about nature and nurture and the rest. But, you know, where we were coming from, my brother and I were from a family who believed in hard work, you know, but go out and get it. As we say, you know, you have to make something happen. You know, you can't wait done just stay while go on. So you have to just make something happen. That's what we say. You know, you have to innovate, and you have to, you know, push things forward. So so that was the background. So as we were getting older, we were actually into, my brother and I, again, we had people, and I'm calling out something else now, from Petticoat Lane. We had the Petticoat Lane market, and there were lots of what they would now call sweatshops, perhaps, but there were loads of seamsters and people who made up garments. So we would commission the making of garments, fabric garments because all the leather shops, you would get all the scrap leather, so you could cut them up and trim the garments, the jackets they were, with leather trimmings. And then
was you competing with my father?
Well, no, I was going to go on and say that actually, because for your father was the Don. Oh, and I remember 501 New Cross Road, and then before that on Deptford High Street. Yeah,
you know, it's always embarrassing to think that my father was responsible for all those suede bomber jackets and those suede skirts.
That's right. And I've got to give and you know, Sonia, you're gonna have to remind me of Dad's name, because give me Dad's name.
Lenny Brown.
Lenny, that's it. Lenny. Obviously Brown, yeah. But everybody knew Lenny, and I have to say this. You know, Sonia hasn't said it, but Lenny from Deptford High Street and from New Cross Road was entrepreneur before all of us. We were children when Sonia's father was cutting a path for all of us. Let me say that without you know, Sonia has got entrepreneurial spirit in her blood before we even knew what a pound looked like. I'll say that much. So yeah, Father Lenny Leathers from Deptford High Street, and then on 501 New Cross Road. I remember it well. So yeah, but then so later in life, this is what we were making up garms as well, and but just trimming them with bits of leather. And you know, I remember making up the leather jacket with the cartoon characters. We were buying bedspread, but children's bedspread, and then lining the jackets out with cartoon characters. I mean, we were pre our times. And then selling them on the Petticoat Lane.
I'm going to cut you, Richard, because we're running out
Yeah.
of time, because I want to get
Oh,
Morris
sorry.
in. But one of the things I always say about South Londoners, do you feel that we had it was more entrepreneurial than other areas? Because, you know, I think that, because when I look back, everybody had a hustle.
Yes.
It might not have been formal, but everyone had a hustle.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, like I was exposed to East London a little as well. But I think that was more the way for all of us. And certainly in South London, everyone, like you said, had a hustle, whether it was you know, let's say you weren't breaking laws, but you might have been bending them a lot. But yeah, everybody, and so there you go. The entrepreneurial spirit is there, you know. And I mean, look at Marley. Marley was trading and using beads as currency hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So I, you know, come against all of those who say, oh, black people can't run business and black people this and black people. Absolute nonsense. You know, Marley was the cross route to east-west trade across the Africas alone. You know, so it's really, it's deeply ingrained in us. And we just have to look at the archive. But as a point of reference, they take us and look at the period of slavery, which in my brethren, Paul Abina, who delivers lessons in this. And he gave me his timeline, and his timeline stretched for about 20 feet. And the section on slavery was about, I'll say 20 feet, about 6 meters. And the section on slavery, just to put this in context, was about 6 centimeters. 6 centimeters in 6 meters. That was the 200 years. And that's all that represented in our timeline.
And so we don't need to get tied up in that, because we're more to our greatness than that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to stop you because I know you're passionate. So I'm going to stop you because I've got to bring Morris in.
And I haven't even spoken about coming up yet.
I know you love it. Well, we're gonna have to give you. Listen, you was on a roll. I couldn't stop you. I couldn't stop you.
I appreciate it.
We've got your details in there so people can get to you. Okay. All right. It's time to bring in Morris, the Connector Lothian. Morris. So Morris, I met playing tennis, believe it or not, and we've become great friends because of that. And it's great to see his growth now that he's found his passion and his purpose. So, Morris, over to you. I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know you can chat and you can do your own intro. So you go, guys.
Oh, man. Oh, good evening, everyone. And Sonia, thank you, man. And I have to thank God for meeting you, actually, because you made me find my purpose on my journey. And I believe I could say to every one of us, right, when we're born, we're dying, we're fighting to find our gift and our purpose, to lead with it, to serve with it, most important. And I believe we're all kings and queens, like everybody here today has mentioned leadership. Leaders lead, they lead from the front, and leaders are born, not created. I'm not going into that, but there's many leaders that are manipulators. We are true leaders because we're born into it. Because in every follower, like I teach the kids, there's a leader inside fighting to come out. And I'm telling you what, it wasn't always like that for me. I'm a former drug dealer, gang member, but my kid's death saved my life. 2 sons I lost. They saved my life so I could save millions of people's lives. I grew up with my mum and dad when I was 7 years old. My dad left home when I was 7, and I struggled with that greatly. Fast forward to when I was 13 years old, I was going to school and my teacher was putting me in a corner. Well, by the time I was 14, they were telling me I wasn't going to be nothing in life. What a horrible thing to say to a kid. But fast forward, by the time I reached 15, 16, I was out in the open were no confidence, no nothing, no belief in myself, no empowerment, I would say. No one to really look up to say, yes, I want to be like that person, you know. So I drifted in the drug trade, I would say, and I started to sell drugs. Everybody here mentioned about doing something out of the ordinary, but mine was selling drugs. And I was selling drugs for 10 years. They say money is the root of all evil, but it's not, people. It's the love of it. And I loved it so much. You know, I was able to buy things and buy weed, buy clothes and everything like that. But fast forward, I was doing that for 12 years, going in and out of jail. And I was thinking to myself, what could I do? I continued selling drugs. But a catalyst happened in my life. And something has always happened in all our life. Everyone here today that I've heard had a rejection. And every rejection is direction. And mine was when my son Dwayne passed away. He was 18 months old. I'm going to be sincere. I must have hugged him about 15 times. And he was gone. My mind was playing tricks on me. I wanted to die, people. I wanted to commit suicide. But my mum always said, come to church. And I would say, I ain't got enough time, mum, for that, because I was out there partying and drinking and smoking. But the time came when I sat down and I listened to my mum and I went to change. And things changed from that. And I would say adversity introduces a man and woman to themselves, because it introduced me. And I started to see the light and walk with God. And in that time, after 8 years, I was able to, by working and taking the baby steps, I started to enjoy working. And by working, I was able to set up a chauffeur company that now drives Justin Bieber, Beyonce, Don Whitney Houston's tour, and doing many things now in my life for the community. But one thing I've got to say, we can't stop what's going to happen in our life, because every thought determines the outcome. So we've got to be able to deal with it. But by walking with God, I was able to deal with certain things. Like when my sister passed away in 2007, my mum passed away in 2010, my dad passed away in 2011, and my sister passed away, and my girlfriend passed away in 2015. And then I lost another son in 2018. But walking with God and seeing the light, that made me realize that there's something in this world for every one of us. And the pain is your gain. Because that pain I went through brought me through to this point where I'm now an inspirational speaker and a life coach. And I'm opening a school in Ethiopia for the kids, the orphan kids, and also a school here, which is most important, for teaching kids life skills and empowerment. Because I never had that at school. I feel that the system failed me. Because maths and English is okay, but my school is going to be about maths and English, empowerment and life skills. Just like somebody else mentioned here earlier, give the kids what they love. Give them something that they love doing, and I believe they can become that. Let them find a progressive idea and let them go ahead and do that. I believe they would achieve that. Because I believe to myself, if my teachers would have gave me what I loved and I started to do it and I kept doing it, you would become it. Because there's no failure in this. You either win or you learn. Like Winston Churchill said, success isn't final. Failure isn't fatal. It's the courage we show to come back over and over again. Nelson Mandela said, we either win or we learn. And through my journey, I must say to every one of you, I've learned a lot, because that pain I went to is like pain when I go to the gym to build muscle. Experience in life is building muscle. Building muscle. Because believing is seeing. It's not seeing, it's believing. So you have to believe in everything you do, and you can get there. I would say to everyone, entrepreneurs or whatever, if you don't believe in it, forget it. But if you love it and you're enjoying it, it can become your gift and become your purpose to serve with, because we've all got something different in life that we can serve with, because God has given us a gift. We have to find it. And to find it, you have to fall down, get back up. Like Les Brown says, if you land on your back, make sure you're looking up, because you could get up. And I believe that this world that we live in is fighting for what you want, because it's not easy. What's easy becomes hard. What's hard becomes easy. I'm working as an entrepreneur now, where I'm going to be co-hosting a show in America on Apple TV. I've written my book. I'm also um, doing many other things like my podcast. My podcast is out, Wear Your Own Crown, and many other things that I'm doing for the kids, like opening the schools. And I want to say to every one of you, the world is your oyster. It's about what you want to do to empower the world. And I'm going to leave you with this. Muhammad Ali said, the service we give to others is the rent we pay for being here. And it's up, onwards and upwards now, because the light is shining bright in my life, and I hope it's shining bright in everyone's life that's listening here today. So thank you for listening. I call myself Maurice the Connector because I'm connected to my inner self now. I know the possibilities. I've left the pigeons now. I'm flying like an eagle, I would say. I'm flying high. And we all can fly high in what we want to do. So Sonia, thank you for listening to me today, and everyone else that's listening. The secret in life about getting ahead is getting started. Every rejection is redirection, I would say. And I got redirected in the right way in the end. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sonia.
Okay, don't go, Maurice. Edith, can we bring you in? Any thoughts on what some of our speakers have said?
Well, when Richard was speaking, I was literally screaming. I was like, somebody needs to stitch that on a pillow. I was literally screaming. And I think the reason why I was screaming is because as a person who lived in the United Kingdom and in the United States, and I spent a lot of time with Black communities, right? A lot of them didn't know where they're originally from, which is completely fine. I think for me, the part that really disappointed me was how they referred to Africa as your Africa, you know? Like, I'm not associated with Africa because I don't live in Africa. And I think for me, I loved it when Richard said that all of us, anyone who has a skin tone, right, that's close enough to mine, has a responsibility, right, to ensure that the African continent gets to her greatness. Because when she gets that, then she gets respect. And when she gets respect, you all get respect. So a lot of people around the world, they treat Black people the way that they treat them, not per se because of the color of their skin, but because they associate them with the African continent. And because they associate the African continent with poverty, with low lifestyle, with all of these negative things, then at the end of the day, that's what they see when they see the rest of us. No matter how well dressed up we are, you know, Gucci gang and all the good stuff, at the end of the day, they still see us the same. And that's why for me, I've been very intentional about making sure that the continent as a whole rises. And it's actually doing that, right? With the free trade agreement. I'm not sure if you know, all of you, but right now, Africa is a free trade area, which is the largest since the World Trade Organization was formed. So this is absolutely insane, number one. And it's going to bring the continent a lot of money, number two. Number three, it's also keeping the money within the continent. Africa is where it is today because we're being looted. So aside from all of you being taken, we're also being looted in the sense of resources that leave the continent every single day. But I also really want to encourage us in this way. And there are some people that will come to rebuild the continent, right? So, like Verma, for example, she's in the energy space. I actually have quite a few people I need to introduce her to in that space. But there are people who will come back and rebuild the continent. I think the question you need to ask yourself is, what are you doing as a person for Black communities? Aside from feeding your family, what else are you doing as a person of color to build communities of color? Whether it's in diaspora or here, how are you doing it? Right? And how are you being intentional with it? So I think I loved everything that Richard said. I was screaming absolutely top of my lungs. I also loved the fact that the point of young people entering entrepreneurship early is being driven home, because when I was young, right, which is not very far, not a very long time ago, but when I was young, the careers that people sang about was, are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer? Are you an accountant? But right now, I wouldn't want to be any of those things. right? Because accountants only look for them in tax season. Doctors, I mean, here they're not even being paid and they're struggling with the pandemic, at least here. I don't know about the UK. And then lawyers are really closing down firms as a result of how bad the pandemic has hit business owners. So lawyers get money because business owners get money. So I think the key thing is just remembering at the end of the day that you as a young person need to, or as a person in general, a Black person, and especially young people, you have to be very, very intentional. Take your space. People of color, take your space. Unashamedly, take as much space as you can in this world. Be unapologetic about it. I loved when I was listening to Maurice, and he's just going on, right, about how amazing he is. I was like, yes, brother, get it for all of us. Because we need Black people who are unapologetic, not whispering about how well they're doing, but shouting it on rooftops, right? And I love the fact that we also have kids being brought into this space early. I wish that was done for me, right? At a very young age, understanding what entrepreneurship was. I was a founder. I didn't even know at 18 that I was a founder. I was just like, I'm making extra money. I'm doing my thing. I'm helping people. Okay. But I wish I understood it the way that now people here on this panel are actually working to help kids understand it. So I think what I would say is this. Oh yeah, my Instagram is Edith Njagi, not Dear Diaspora. I think that was a podcast I joined. But yeah, I think what I would say is this. We have to be
We
very
haven't got much
intentional.
time.
Yeah, we have to be very intentional and we have to be very relentless. But yeah, correction on the Instagram bit.
They're working on it now. Julian, you're back in with us. I know we keep talking about the importance of entrepreneurship, teaching entrepreneurship at a young age. And Richard, I'll bring you into this.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think, you know, when we were growing up, because, you know, they love to say we're oldies, right? So, and that little cheek, and the cheeky Julian, I'll never forget this, when he called me an elder. When did I become an elder? So I'll never forget that. Look at this glamour. What's elder about this? So anyway, what Julian's doing for young people, can you imagine if we had that instruction when we were growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, if it was, yeah, I mean, it would perhaps, well, I don't know, when we were growing up, I mean, you, as I said, had that influence firsthand anyway. You know, Dad saw to it. We didn't have it, but we had stability. Going back to what Maurice was saying, we had stability. You know, Mum and Dad was always there. That, you know, I was born into a home that my father owned. So I think if we can offer anyone anything, anyone that is any youth anything, fathers, get in the homes, sort your stuff out. And I will say this to my brother Maurice, I'm a born again Christian too. I'm a believer. Well, I'd rather say I'm a believer more than Christian, but hey. And we as Black people, Black fathers, you know, the difference with our parents, I would say, Sonia, is that, not to say that there wasn't difficulty, but when you haven't got it economically and you're both relying on each other and you've got to sort it out because both incomes are important to the family to pay mortgages and the rest, you know, and it's all circumstance, isn't it? Because if our parents were able to get council houses, then perhaps they wouldn't have owned their house because it would have been an easier option. They just pay rent and plod along that way. But circumstance was such that when you have so many living in, you know, partners living in rooms in shared occupants, and then how many women want to cook at the same time for their husbands, and so on and so forth. It was just circumstance, and that was the circumstance that presented itself to my parents. They were fortunate enough.
You've got to remember, Richard, the good old partner.
Well, that too, because there was a holy partner, John. A holy partner want to get teeth too. Oh, you mean? A good thing.
Julian, do you know what the partner is? Julian, do you know what the partner is?
Yeah, simple partnership. But hey, you know what? the more astute among us again, they would set the partner, because by managing the funds, they would get a hand. So if there were 10 people in it, you, the 11th hand, everybody would have to contribute and give it to you. So you would get a hand without even putting in a penny. But the responsibility was yours to collect the money and to distribute it. And there are so many stories about people thieving people partner money.
I know.
There are so many stories. But again, if it, you know, and I can liken that to what they now have as Crown Savers in Lewisham. That's what they call their one, which is now extended to everybody in Lewisham, which was originally a saving scheme for the council employees. So, and then they give, you know, easy loans, soft loans and the rest relative to the amount you're saving. But if it wasn't for the partner, again, you'd have some big partners, 20 and 30 people. So when your draw came around, and sometimes you will hope one person might have 2 hands, might have 3 hands. So, you know, and
they were part of different partners.
And part of different partners as well, yeah.
They needed it to buy their house. They needed it to then set up their business.
Yes.
And so therefore they weren't squanderers.
And it was, and they could have even been buying tickets to go back home and fill barrels for their people as well.
Yeah, but the government wants to tax it now, Sonia. Sonia, the government I were talking about, they wanted to tax it now. Partners, remember?
What's that?
You never hear that? Yeah.
Foolishness.
Tax it.
Yeah, but that is just Caesar wanting to get his piece of the action. You know, at the end of it, who was the biggest, you know, this country was selling opium and heroin and the rest to the Chinese hundreds of years ago. You know, the hypocrisy of it all is amazing.
Yeah,
you know, our sister Edith spoke about, and the billions are being siphoned from Africa daily, and then they give a little bit back to refugees and the rest and say they're doing something good. And you know, and I think Edith would know Madam Ambassador, who now chairs up the ADDI, you know, the African Diaspora Development Initiative. Yeah, we know that. I'm already a member, and I'd encourage you all to look up the ADDI. So, you know, Sister Edith, you know where I'm coming from. So this is vitally important. You know, we can because we must, and that's about as far as it goes. Right. We can because we must.
Julian, you see when the elders start talking.
Oh boy!
Come on, Mr. Millennial.
Oh boy, Millennial. You know what? There's a song that I grew up to, and it goes, "Every man do his thing a little way,
different." Dennis Brown, Dennis Emmanuel Brown, step up and say.
All right, and I guess the reason I say that is because there's so many different ways to approach business. There's so many different ways to approach entrepreneurship, and you know, there's. And even just economic development, Black empowerment. And I think that they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? And for me, it's about looking at it objectively and thinking, all right, we're in 2021, this is the state of the world. Against the echo chamber that I'm in, what actually is the most effective way, right? And almost look at it scientifically, right? And so, and I'll give you an example. That partner system was turned into a big time tech startup in the last 5 or 6 years, right? And so it wasn't. So it's almost like they took that idea, that model, and they wrapped some technology around it and used it to scale. Yeah. So it's like, what is it that has always worked? Principally has always worked, but how can we use what we have at our disposal today to amplify it, to make it more accessible, to widen the audience? And, you know, it's almost like, you know, let's find some hybrid models. Let's find new ways to solve new problems. You can't take traditional, I don't want to say old, because old makes it sound bad. And principally, there are some amazing foundations in that. But if it's not working, it's not working. So I can't help, and this is only because I talk to young people, I'm sure a lot of us do on a daily basis. There's so much stuff that they just don't have access to, or that they're not ready to hear. And so I'm sure a lot of us will understand.
We've got 1 minute.
Meeting people at their level. So meeting people at the stage that they're at. Yeah. So a lot of us in this room have had a lot of time to develop and to elevate and to reach certain ideals, philosophies, approaches. But sometimes you've got to come down to the level and meet people where they're at and build them up. And so I think that's not an easy thing to do. But because, again, in our work with young people, we're having to distill things, break them down to their very basic building blocks and allow them to build. And actually, it's more about allowing them to build what the future might look like, as opposed to me saying, I think the future should look like this, and that's what you should do. No, it's about giving them the tools, giving them the space. And I think, Richard, you said it, a lot of that stability that you mentioned is extremely important, right? And how can we help young people to have more stable lives, not just economically, but mentally, so that they can build what the future would look like for them, because they're the ones that are going to own it.
Consciousness, consciousness. Serious, Julian.
Yeah, well, as you say about the youth, if I can just say.
Hold on, we're running out of time, and I know everyone's really passionate. So I'm going to do your last contribution, and I'm going to start with Maurice, and then I'm going to go to Richard, Edith, then Julian, and then we're going to say goodbye. But we are running over time, so please make it a Twitter 142 rather than an autobiography.
Yeah, my take on everything and my take on life is like Julian said, we have to bring it back down and rebuild them with a higher consciousness with what's going on in the world now. They need to be aware of everything that's going on, because when COVID happened for me, my chauffeur company that drives Justin Bieber, Beyonce, and all these people, no one started to come. I changed my consciousness in going on Facebook, doing things different. Do you understand? Any rejection is redirection, and doing Facebook, doing other things, becoming a coach and a speaker, and where I am now is amazing to myself because I made it happen, and we can make it happen. And that's why my vision and mission before I leave this world is to make sure I turn these youths into leaders, because in every follower there's a leader. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, hi. Well, let me shout my children. We were speaking about passing the baton. So Sharon and I, my wife Sharon, I'll give her a shout. We're a partnership. We've got 6 children. The first 2 now own, which will become a chain of eateries, and that's called After Hours. They've on their second branch. They're 4 years old. The branch in Brighton is now owned by our third daughter. And that's just been rebranded, and this was about reshaping to the market. We do the traditional stuff, but there are 96,000 students in Brighton, so they're reshaping it. It's called Craving, so look out for that. Craving at 2 Preston Circle. So this is the youngest one, Tweeko. If you look up Tweeko's a music producer. He's got 2 studios. He's blowing up the place right now. Julian, look up Tweeko. Tweeko. Yeah, look at Tweeko. And now you mentioned Beyonce. It was when my daughter said Beyonce's got a blue tick, I understood what a blue tick meant. I had no idea about socials. So now Tweeko's got a blue tick. He's a verified celebrity. So that's how I'm handing the baton, because as to what happened to Sonia, it has been nurtured from the home. So my children don't know about working for people. You see, we have different conversations. When you speak to business people, hereditary business people, you don't speak about the weather, you don't speak about nonsense, you speak about entrepreneurship, and you speak about leadership, and you speak about opportunities, and you speak about how to help. I'm saying we're all got it in us, like has been said. We all got the nature. Bring your children to, and you talk about mentor, let us mentor. Bring your children to us. Because I don't know one black leader, one black entrepreneur that will turn a youngster away. I don't know any. So we've all got it within us, but let us mentor them. I sat on the Prince of Wales Trust. We used to give money, grants, and co-funded by NatWest. Yeah, we used to. So I sat on the panel of the Prince's Trust where we would give money to startups, and they had to get a manager and they had to present to us. Okay, so all the word out there is send them to us and let us nurture them. But they've got to be. You won't get rich overnight. They've got to be able to sit down and listen, and that is it. And all of the road man, them go find somebody and put your money together and buy houses and stop killing one another. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that impassioned ignite.
Yes.
Okay, Edith.
I think
Final
I'll say
comments?
this. I'll say this. Well, I'll ask a question and then I'll answer it. Okay. Who is the richest man who has ever lived?
Mensa Musa.
There we
Yes.
The
go.
richest man in
There
Babylon. Yeah, the richest
we
man in
go.
Babylon.
Mali. That's my hero.
It's not Richard Branson.
That's
It's
right.
not any of these young, cool kids that you guys are saying here. Guess
That's
what?
right.
It's a black man. It's an African man. That is Africa money. So you know what? Don't let anyone tell you or limit you as a black person. You come from the wealthiest, richest culture. And don't let anybody tell you anything else. Refuse anything less. We are Mansa Musa greatness. Not even Richard Branson. Mansa Musa greatness.
For real.
Thank you very much. So, Maurice, did you do final? Is anyone? Yes, so everyone did it. What can I say? I've just been asked there needs to be a part 2, so we'll see if we can arrange that. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in and has stayed the extra couple of minutes. I'm sure somebody must have got something out of this today. I'm sure you ignite my fire. So I'm sure you've got the contact details of our speakers. Get in touch with them if you want to ask them any more questions. Also, make sure you sign up at www.nbwn.org. And when if you want to know about the richest man in the world, just type it in Google and it'll come up. I think the book's even free, isn't it? It's on a PDF. And he gives you the principles of how to spend money and save money and tithe. So it's a very, very good book. So that's it. So time to say goodbye from Edith. Bye. Wave.
Bye.
Bye.
Richard, you're too enough. Julian. But everyone, thank you so much for your positive, invigorating contribution to today. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you very much. So from me, Sonia Brown, National Black Women's Network, we're here to inform, connect, and empower. See you soon. Bye.